Hey guys, a lot of you have been asking questions about the video that I posted the other day, and then also about my appointment that I had yesterday at the Duke Dysautonomia Clinic. And I figured I would just make another video to explain some of the questions that I'm getting, because a lot of them are kind of along the same lines. First of all, thank you guys so much for actually asking those questions. It makes me feel good that you guys really want to know what's going on. So, anyway, the first question is, when am I having surgery? And that's a good question. We don't have a surgery date yet because, number one, we wanted to go up there to meet with the doctors and to get as much information as we could about the surgery and about all of the stuff that comes afterwards, like how long will it take for recovery, how long do I have to stay up there after the surgery, when I come back, what are my restrictions, all of that stuff, because a lot of that we'll need to make sure that we have help with the kids and that kind of stuff, and so we need to make sure we can coordinate that before we actually commit to surgery. And secondly, it's a major, major surgery. They permanently would be attaching my head to my spine, and that's a big deal. And we did not want to just run into it. We wanted to take our time to pray about it, to talk about what, to make a pros and cons list. Not really. You want to buy a boat, Mom and Dad? Anyway, but just to maybe see if there's any other options before surgery. And I've heard there's some medicines like Diamox and that kind of stuff, and we haven't tried those things yet. So, again, this is all of a part of the thing. We're trying to make sure we have a game plan and figure it all out before I commit to major surgery. And if you've ever been around people or know people, or you yourself have ever had back surgery, once you have surgery on your spine, it's not just one spine procedure. Very rarely is it ever just one. Usually down the road, there's more surgeries that have to come, because once you start messing with it, there's no turning back. So I guess that's another reason why we just want to make sure that that's the right thing. Another question was, how come the doctors here locally didn't find out that my spine was pressing into my brain? And that's an excellent question. It's been a fight this whole time to get a doctor that will listen, that will, well, not necessarily that they'll listen. I have a fantastic primary care physician now, and he does listen, and he has been pivotal in getting me to where I need to go, and I'm so very thankful for him. But not just to get somebody to listen, but to have the expertise. That's kind of the problem. I've had to fight to get the MRIs done, and then to get the insurance to pay for them. And once they've been done, finally, the neuroradiologists have read them as normal. And then once they come back normal, what are you going to do? And so what I did was I decided to basically teach myself how to read an MRI, how to interpret an MRI. So I went online and I started learning the anatomy of the brain and the spine. Not necessarily all of the spine, because that is very, very detailed. But I began to learn how to label things, how to identify where things go and that kind of thing. And then I moved on, from there I moved on to learning how to find those parts of the brain to be actually able to see them on an MRI, to see them in the different views that they have, and to be able to identify what it would look like in a normal MRI versus something that it has something that's not normal. And Actually, it was through a video that it was one of those continuing education videos for neurosurgeons and neurologists that the Chiari and Syringomyelia Foundation website, they had this video on there from Dr. Miles Kobe, and he is a neuroradiologist. And the name of the video was The Discordant Report. And in his talk, he was speaking about how he kept seeing these patients who had normal MRIs. They were read as normal, but yet they were very symptomatic. And that just didn't seem right. And he explained we have these universal measurements to be able to classify what's normal on an MRI, and that way all of them are reading and interpreting essentially the same way. But these measurements, like the Grab Oaks line, the horizontal Harris line, and the clivo-axial angle, when those are used on these patients that are symptomatic but have an otherwise normal MRI, it's very clear that their MRI is not normal and that they do have brainstem impingement. And that is why they are symptomatic. And it was after that particular one that I knew I was onto something. And I learned how to measure those lines, and I decided I was going to just check to see mine versus a trained professional's opinion, and we actually got the same measurements, so I knew that I was onto something, and that was very, very cool. Okay, the next question is, what is the difference between dysautonomia and POTS? POTS stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and POTS is one of 70 or so disorders or diseases that are affected by the autonomic nervous system. And so it's kind of like the umbrella. Dysautonomia is the umbrella for all of those that they fall under, because there's a problem with your autonomic nervous system, the things that your body does without you thinking, like breathing, your heart beating, digestion, those kinds of things. So POTS is one of many forms of dysautonomia. And basically, another one of the questions was, well, what is POTS? And what does that mean for you in your life? And like I mentioned, POTS is the acronym for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And basically, it's whenever I go to stand up, or I go from laying down to sitting up even sometimes, my body has a hard time adjusting to the pull of gravity on my blood. So everything, all of the blood in my head and stuff is pulled down. And normally what happens, a lot of technical stuff, but I guess like stuff in your either veins and stuff and all of that stuff in your legs close or whatever to make sure that not all of the blood can pool down there. And so that kind of is supposed to cause like an equilibrium so your blood stays upwards. But apparently that doesn't happen properly, or even, I guess it doesn't happen at all, or I don't know. But anyway, and so that is why we feel dizzy, we feel lightheaded, we feel like we're gonna fall over, sometimes we pass out, we feel shaky and our balance is off. So that is why POTS is not very fun. But after meeting the doctor yesterday, I feel very encouraged about what my life will be like, even though I have POTS, and it's not something that I can ever necessarily get rid of, but I can make changes and that kind of things. to lessen the symptoms and the severity, and then it kind of comes and goes, and so it's going to be something that I learn to live with. One of the game plan that she has right now is that I need to increase my salt and my fluid intake dramatically. And then I guess I'll start a physical therapy rehab program, and that takes about 6 months, she said. The whole goal is to get me able to stand up and to get my heart to be able to tolerate that, because right now it's not tolerating it very well. As you can see, I needed to lay down while I was doing this video, and so my body needs to adjust to that and get used to it. Which brings me, there's one other thing that she suggested, or well, she really prescribed it for me yesterday, which is this. My very first pair of compression stockings. I'm 32, not 90. Not that there's anything wrong with being 90. But this right here, it's a little off-putting, even though my inner 90-year-old named Myrtle kind of was excited. But anyway, it's supposed to help keep the blood from pooling in my legs, just in time for the nice warm weather and all of that good stuff, right? Fun times.